In this video we will learn how to make bar plots in Python. So I have the script on here on the right. I've imported numpy as np. I've imported matplotlib.pyplot as plt, and I've created a random data set that has 10 rows and 3 columns. The first column is the first group of data. It's going to center around 0. The second column is going to center around 5, and the third column is going to center around 3. So that's just going to give us different size bars so that we can see the difference. And then I have the group names, control, cure all, and cure most. So the first thing, if you're going to create a bar plot, is you need to create a mean of the data set. That's going to determine the magnitude of the bars themselves. So I'm just going to type mdata. Of course, I use a descriptive name for the mean of the data, and then I use np.mean of the data, and I specify the axis as 0. If you don't do that, then it just gets the mean of the entire data set as a single number. You want the mean of each column. So you want the mean along the first axis, or axis 0. Then you want the error, so use edata equals np std of data. Again, I set my axis at 0. And I'm getting the standard deviation, and I need to do DDOF equals 1. That's going to give me my sample standard deviation. Then I'm going to divide it by the square root of the size of the data. Now we're just going to do np shape data 0. That's going to get the size of the first dimension. Now we might have to use this term quite a bit in this script. So I'm going to actually bring this up here, and I'm going to do sample size equals 10. And then I'm going to put sample size here, and then sample size here. That will shorten this code up a little bit, and I'm pretty sure I'm going to have to use this number again. So, okay. And then let's just see what it looks like. So plt dot bar, and the first argument it's going to ask for is the x values. So we're going to add these x values. Let's put them over here. This is going to be the section where I put the properties of the plot appearance. So I'm going to do x equals 0, 1, 2. So they're going to be equally spaced bars. X, and then m data. Let's just see what that looks like. First thing, almost every time when I'm plotting in Python or really any program, the first thing I do is I plot the data, and then I start tweaking the appearance of the graph once I see it, unless I know beforehand exactly what I'm looking for. So I save that, and let's run it. See, it's running the code here, and finishes, and I see nothing. Nothing pops up, nothing shows up. And the reason is, for Python, it usually asks you, it's a program that asks you to be very explicit on the things that it does. One of those things is to show the graph. So it will not show the graph unless you explicitly tell Python to show the graph. So we're going to do plt. There's a couple ways you can do it. You can do plt show, or you can do plt pause. That should work in most cases. And let's see what happens. So there's the graph. You can see the center is around 0, and this is around 5, and this is around 3. Now some of this data is going to change because each time we plot it, because this random data set is going to be slightly different each time around. So the next thing we want to do is modify the appearance of the graphs, and so we're going to be typing in some things to change the appearance. Now we want to apply those properties above PLT show, because if we apply it below it, then whatever changes we make will not show on this graph. So let's start making some changes. So the first thing we need to do is we need to set the tick marks to 0, 1, and 2, so only have tick marks at those 3 locations, and then change the name to either control, cure all, or cure most. Now, one thing I want to make clear is I like being a little more explicit in my coding, and yes, if you just say plot, it's going to automatically generate a graph for an axis, a figure, and it's going to apply whatever subsequent changes you make to that figure. But I like to be a little more explicit and tell Python which axis I want to graph on. So I will type in ax equals plt.axes and then parentheses. So what this is going to do is this is going to create the axis first, and then it's going to plot on that axis. So it's a little more explicit this way, and then I can modify the appearance of this axis. So let's do ax dot set, and then we'll set the tick marks to x ticks equals x. So that's going to set the tick marks equals to 0, 1, 2. And then we're going to do x tick labels equals grps, which is my groups variable here. So let's see if that runs. So I'm going to save it. Okay, so now we have control, cure all, and cure most. So again, I'm just going to continue to tinker away. So the next thing I want to do is I want to add a label to the y-axis. So let's do y label equals, okay, so let's just make it something arbitrary, amount cured. Okay, so if I save it and I run it, you can see it adds amount cured. So the next thing I want to do is I want to get rid of this top line and this right line away from this graph. So I'm going to type in ax.spines right dot set visible false. And then I want to do that. I'm going to copy this. Type in top. So if I save this and I run that, you can see that it removes those 2 lines. The next thing I want to do is I want to get rid of these tick marks down here. So I'm going to type in ax.tick params. And there are so many properties that can be modified. I mean, there's almost an infinite amount. So you can tinker away and get it exactly the way you want. So this should remove the tick marks. So these little tick marks here. So no more tick marks. Okay, the next thing I want to do is I want to add the error bars. To do that, go right up in this part here and use a function called plt.errorbar, and then the first value is going to be the x values. That's the point at which it's going to draw the error bars. The next value is going to be the center of the error bars, which is the mean. So this would be m data. And then after that, it's going to be the error. Now you don't have to do the top and the bottom. You just have to give it one row or one dimensional data, which is e data. So I need to type in error bar. I apologize. Type in error bar. I'm going to save it and run that. And you can see that it draws an error bar at each one of the points. Now, one of the issues here is that it connects these points with the line. Now we need to get rid of that line. So to do that is we type in ls equals none. Now we don't want to do capital none, like, because there's actually a none value in Python. We don't want to do that. We want to actually put it as a string. So ls equals none. You see now they're not connected. Okay, the next thing I want to do is I want a horizontal line to be right at 0 and not here at the bottom. So the first thing I'm going to do is get rid of this line at the bottom. So I'm just going to copy this. I'm going to copy this text here that removed the line from the right and the top. Just type like this, and let's do bottom. Okay, that should removes the bottom line, and then now I want a horizontal line right at 0. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to plot a line. So that's going to be, and let me combine these two together so that they make it's a little more organized. So plt plot, that will plot a line, and I want to actually put at the right edge here, or let's see, I want to go a little bit further than the right edge, so I want to do negative, so the first x value is going to be negative 0.75. Okay. And then I want to go all the way over here, so this is at 2, and I want to be at 2.75. So going just beyond the bars. Next thing is I want it to be at 0. And I want the line to be black. So the code for black is K. So the way to remember K as black is most printers are CMYK. So C for cyan, M for magenta, Y for yellow, and K for black. So your printer, that's K is for black. Okay, so let's see what that looks like. Okay, in this case, it didn't have values in the negative, so let's just run it again. So let's see what happens. Okay, so now it is below. Now you can see that it goes beyond. I want this line to actually meet up with this y-axis here. So to do that is I need to set the limit. So I'm going to put a comma here, enter. I'm going to go xlem equals negative 0.75 and 2.75. Okay, let's see what that does. So it looks like I typed in, so it's difficult to know which is the exact syntax. So let's type in xlem, must be the syntax for Python for limit. So Control S. Okay, so let's see how that looks. And it looks good. Okay, so the next thing we see that the horizontal line is pretty thick. Let's change the thickness of the y-axis. So I'm going to do ax.spines left, set line width. Let's put it as 1. Let's see what that looks like. Okay, that looks pretty good. Okay, so the next thing is I want to change the face color. Okay. So to do that is we'll go to bar and type in color. That will default on the face color. And I'm going to give the RGB value. So you can type in 0.8. So this is going to be a reddish color. 0.1, 0.1. Let's see what that looks like. And let's set the edge color. Let's lighten it up a bit actually. 2, 2. So increasing these values will lighten up that color. So if I were to set this at 5, you can see it's much lighter. In fact, I kind of like that color, so we'll keep that. And let's set the edge. I want to put the edge up here. So I'm going to type in edge because I'm going to be modifying both the error bars and the edges of the bar graph, the lines for the bars themselves. So I'm going to type in edge equals 0.6, 0.05, and 0.05. So this is going to be a kind of a darker red. So let's go down here and we're going to type in edge color equals edge. So let's see what that looks like. Okay, it looks pretty good. I'm going to thicken that line up a little bit. So I'm going to press enter and do first let me do a comma and then enter. Line width equals, and I'm gonna just type in LW and then define up here what the line width is going to be. Equals 2. Okay, and let's go ahead and modify the error bars as well. So I'm gonna type in color equals edge, and then line width equals LW. So now we're going to change both the error bars and the boundaries. Save this, the boundaries of the bars. Okay, so there you go. So that is an idea on how you can plot a bar graph and then modify its appearance.